to another episode of Paint Along with Skye. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Skye and I post beginning level acrylic painting tutorials here on YouTube every Saturday. So make sure to hit subscribe so you can join the fun and paint along, and don't forget to hit the bell icon to be notified when I post a new video. Alright, this week we are fast approaching Mother's Day. I wanted to do a special and meaningful and customizable painting for all the mothers and children of mothers out there. We're going to do a gorgeous blooming, blossoming teapot that's pouring into a little teacup, symbolic of how mother's love pours into their children. I have my 4 standard brushes for today's class. I use these brushes in the majority of my videos. They are 4 sizes, and your brushes don't need to be the exact same as my brushes, but I do recommend that they are generally the same size and shape and meant for a water media. So this first one is a 3/4 inch wash brush. And then I have 3 pointed brushes of different sizes that I like to use. So I have a size 10, a size 3, and a size 3/0, really tiny brush. We're gonna put all of the brushes in our water cup off the side of the screen. The colors that I have to start with for today's background, this is totally customizable if you'd like to mix it up, but I just have some red and white so that I can make a nice textured pink background. But as we design our paintings today, feel free to customize it as per your own mother's favorite colors perhaps, or whatever you think will look good. I always support creativity here on this channel. To see a full materials list of everything that I use and recommend, check the description box below and it will take you to my materials page where I will break it down for you. All right, let's go ahead and jump on in with our background step. Right, it's as simple as it gets for the background step today. We are just going to do a textured all one color background. So I'm going to use my largest brush, my wash brush, for this. And I'm going to go more along the lines of a pastel background for today, just because I'm going to be using really vibrant colors with my flowers. So I kind of want to do a little bit more pastel for the background, and I want to add plenty of white and have a little bit of variation within the colors here in my textured background. So some areas are going to be a little bit lighter pink, some areas a little bit more saturated, and we're not going to over blend things here so that we just get a little bit of interest in our background. And if you've added too dark of a color or too dark or too light of a color, you can grab some more white or your main pigment and just put that right on top and blend right on your canvas. All right, just a soft texture, a little bit of water always added into the paint to help it flow nice and smoothly. I'm using a canvas board today, which is my preferred painting surface for these classes, at least, mainly because they are cost effective and they also store flat, and I have a lot of paintings at this point. I hope you do too. So I like to not take up too much space with my paintings, and these canvas boards are great for that. Boxed canvas works okay too. We do want that canvas texture, and we want our first background layer to really soak into that canvas. Okay, so a little bit of water again really helps it soak in and get that first layer of color down. So we should see no more white with this first layer, and then we are going to step away and let it dry completely before we come back and add our cute teapot and teacup. So I'll see everyone in a couple minutes. Okay, and we're back with a completely dry background, and I have some fresh colors on a new piece of palette paper. I have some black, a fair amount of white here, a little bit of phthalo green, some cadmium yellow, cadmium orange, violet, aka purple, and a little bit of cobalt blue as well. I rinsed my brushes and got some fresh water at break as well. Let's go ahead and jump right back on into things. And this next step is maybe a little bit challenging. So everyone take a deep breath, take a sip of coffee if you need it. We are going to sort of sketch out our entire composition here, really, with our teapot and our teacup, but rather than using a pencil, we're gonna just use our brush. I'm going to use my second to smallest brush, and I'm going to use white for this. If you wanted to, you could sketch and practice off to the side a couple times if you'd like, or you could even sketch with like water and just your brush before you even add the white if you're a little hesitant to just jump right in with the lines. But I have practiced once before, and I actually filmed this once before and messed up the video, which you may have seen me post about. So we've had a couple rounds of this, and I feel pretty comfortable just jumping right in with it. But feel free to practice if you'd like. I'm going to be doing some pretty bold lines here with my white. So I'm going to start with the saucer, which is going to be a long oval shape at the very left-hand lower corner of my canvas. And I want to make it long, and I want to have it even at the two sides. And probably have it push out a little bit further. It's okay if it goes off the side of the canvas a little bit. That's going to be our first oval line. And then right underneath, I'm going to do these little diagonal lines. And then a straight line here at the bottom for the bottom of the saucer. And that's going to give me a good way to eyeball a straight edge, because I'm going right against the bottom of my canvas, which is squared, of course. So then I can kind of bring it up a little bit if I need to with my oval, adjust that as needed. The objective here with sketching with our paintbrush is we're going to fill this in with a base color in a minute, and we're going to keep the outermost sketch lines. So you can see I have lots of sketch lines over here, trying to bring it to that right angle, the correct angle. All right, that's probably fine. Then I'm going to build my teacup right on top, and I'm going to start with the top part of my teacup. Also an oval, but not as long as your saucer. But we want another oval shape. And then I'm going to bring down diagonal lines till about the middle of my saucer. Again, I'm just going to keep the outermost sketch line, so you can adjust if you need to. Okay, and then slightly curved line it there at the bottom for the bottom of our cup. Adjusting as needed. We can kind of adjust during our fill-in step 2. But that looks pretty good. And then on one side of my teacup, I'm going to do a cute little handle. I'm going to start with a swirl. And then I'm going to connect the bottom of the swirl to the bottom of the cup. All right, there we have our basic shape completed for our teacup. Okay, so I think we should just stick with the sketching for now and do our teapot as well. All right, so for my teapot, I think I'd like to start with the top oval, and I really have to think about my layout here, because I want it to look like the spout of the teapot is pouring into the teacup. And the first couple times I tried this, I went a little bit too low with my teapot. So I'm going to try to bring it a little bit further up than I think I might need to be. I'm just gonna wing it and hope. that I've spaced it correctly. I'm going to try to kind of adjust my shape to bring it there. And I think, eyeballing it, I think that should be pretty good. From that oval, I'm going to have a little hash mark coming down. Then I'm going to do a parallel curved line. It follows the bottom oval. All right, and then the main part of my teapot, I'm going to come out from the center point, or where those two lines meet right there, that little corner. And I'm going to bring it out in either direction for a nice big teapot and sort of curve my way down. And I'm kind of narrowing it in a little bit for that classic teapot shape, but it looks cute even if it's like fairly even. And then we're not really going to see it on that side as much. And that way our pouring love into the teacup scene is sort of going to be the center focal point, not so much one shape or the other. And then we would have a handle, so I'm just going to do a little curved brush stroke there. 2 curves right where that handle would connect, because that handle would be a similar curve and it would go right about like that, or like that. Visualize. All right, that's looking pretty good. And then typically your teapot would have a lid, but we're going to have an open teapot so that we can put our flowers in it. I'm going to do a little flared foot. And again, I'm following that same curve. So you should have curve, 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 curve. And then our spout, we don't want our spout to be too much higher than the top part of the teapot, because then it wouldn't pour correctly. So we gotta make sure we come down a little bit before we add our spout. I'm gonna go probably from right about there. And I'm going to bring the top part up like so. And then build like an S shape on the bottom. So you have a curve on the top and an S on the bottom. And it should actually be a little bit more narrow and then get a little bit wider towards the base. Again, adjusting, gonna keep those outermost white lines. Okay, and I did end up a little higher than my teapot, like I said not to do. I might cheat this just a little bit higher to adjust for that slightly. But that's all right. Maybe make that a little bit bigger as well. That looks better. Slight adjustments can make a difference. Okay, it looks pretty cute. We're gonna go with it. If you've made it this far, give yourself a pat on the back, because that was a lot of hard work. We're going to do the majority of the painting now in this next step, which is going to be filling in our teapot and teacup shapes. I'm going to choose to do a matching set of teal teapot and teacup, but once again, if you'd like to customize this with your mother's favorite colors, I love that idea. So we're going to be using a lot of this main matching set color. We're going to use a fair amount of white as well, and I'm going to use my second largest medium-sized brush, and I'm going to start with the largest section. Again, we still want a little bit of water always in our paint, and I'm going to start filling in with the base color, and I want to take my brush strokes in the direction of the shape, and I want to cover the sketch lines as well. Okay, so with each section, we're going to be keeping our brush strokes deliberate, filling in the shapes, adjusting the shapes, and covering our sketch lines. And we should have fairly good coverage. If you're working with a base color with white, that white helps the opacity so that it's less see-through for your background color layer. And right now, to start, I'm just filling it in with the base color, but I'm gonna add some highlights and shadows in just a minute already with this step. So sometimes we will add highlights and shadows as a second layer, but you can also do what's called wet on wet blending, which we are going to use today for our round ceramic shapes. So we want to work fairly quickly with this, since acrylic dries really quick. And once we have it all filled in with our base color, I'm going to add a little bit of shadows. I'm going to do that with some darker green, which is going to be more of my phthalo green with just a pinch of black. And you can have a little bit of white in it as well. I just haven't washed my brush, so there's still some white in this as well. Okay, I'm going to go sort of along the outside edges with this slightly darker color, and there should be a little bit of blending happening naturally, but you'll probably still look a little stripy. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go around the edges with this darker color, and then we're gonna grab some of the base color again. We're gonna go right next to it, sort of pull it more towards the center so that we're softening that edge, getting a little bit of a blend. So you can see we get a little bit of roundness, some depth. And we still want our brush strokes to go in that up and down direction. So you can see some of my shadow in the center there. So I just went over it real quick to get those brush strokes going the right direction again. And then we're also going to highlight the center. So we've shadowed the outside of this section. And now to make it look even rounder, I've rinsed my brush, and I'm gonna grab some white paint and just do a few brush strokes in the center here. And then I'm just gonna keep going over it until I get a little bit of a blend. And then I'll rinse my brush, grab the base color again, and soften the edge of our highlight too, which it is kind of tricky. This is a huge part of painting though, is mastering the gradation. You want to be very light-handed. You don't want to get too streaky, but it's okay to be a little streaky, because that kind of just adds to the painterly quality to have the visible brush strokes. That's okay too. But we are wanting to work it until we get a little bit of roundness. And that first section was the largest section, so that's looking nice and finished. Now I'm going to fill in all these smaller sections as well. And for this foot base here, we're going to bring our base color right up to that nice shadowed gradation that we just created. And I'm sort of evening out the base shape, base of the teapot, foot of the teapot. And I'm using still my medium-sized brush, but I think I'd like to use a smaller brush for some shadows, but I'm going to try to fill in these other couple sections. I'm going to leave this part alone for now in the center. That's going to be a slightly different color, But I'm gonna see if I can quickly fill in all of these smaller areas, and then we'll come in with a smaller brush to do the highlights and shadows for them as well. But feel free to use a smaller brush this whole time too, if you prefer. I'm seeing a little bit of messiness there that I'd like to tidy up. I like working with this medium-sized brush because you can get a really fine line with it still if you're just very, very light-handed. When I first took my very first painting class, I believe I was in kindergarten, and I remembered them saying, pretend like you are painting on the back of a bug and you don't want to squish the bug. If that visual helps you, whether you are 5 or 35 or 85, then good, I'm glad. It's a helpful visual still for me too. All right, and I think I will use my smaller brush for some of this filling in as well, just because I'm getting a little tight in these smaller areas. All right, so slightly smaller brush for these tighter sections. One size down, our second to smallest. Today's painting is a little bit challenging. I just want to remind you this is a digital format, so even though it is paint along with Skye, if you paint a little slower than Skye, that's okay. Or a little slower than your neighbor, if you're painting this in a group. Feel free to pause, catch up as needed. You can also fast forward, use the format, whatever works for you. If you're on a touchscreen device, I believe there's even a way to zoom in too, which can be helpful. All right, so again, just working with the base color in these smaller areas that I've sketched out with myself, for myself, earlier with my white. And we're looking pretty good with our shapes. And then once we are all filled in, we're going to add some highlights and shadows as well. Again, same idea. It's going to be the same idea for every section since we have a matching set of teapot and teacup, of course, mother and daughter, or mother and son, or, you know, whoever likes flowers. It's okay to like flowers if you're a boy too. And be represented by a beautiful blooming, blossoming of your life experience. Going along the outside edge with my darker color. I'm kind of going into each section that I just filled in that's still nice and wet for some good blending. But I'm going to come back in just a minute and soften that edge. Which is all helping me build that roundness. Nice. And then I'm going to do a little bit of highlighting too. Sometimes you don't even need to take the base color. You can just go in with a damp brush too. Try some things out. You also might not use paint the exact same way that I do, and that is okay. Acrylic is a very versatile medium, and art doesn't have hard rules. There's no real right or wrong way to use your medium. I mean, I guess there is, but you can use more paint, less paint. You can make it more blended or less blended. That's all, you know, stylized versus representational. It's all art, and it's all valid, and it's your style. And uniqueness is very important. Okay, just softening the edge fine-tuning anything that I need to as I go. But I'm going to add a little bit of lightness to some of these sections as well, kind of mostly just right in the center of the section. And see, this time I'm not even grabbing my base color again, just blending with my brush. So I'm bringing that highlight down the spout, kind of highlighting the curves and just softening it right then with my brush. It picks up plenty of that teal to just get a nice subtle blend. Highlight right through the center of my top section and even a little bit on our handle that goes off the edge. I'm going to fine tune that handle just a little bit there. Okay. All right, and now the only area that we should have left is going to be this center point here, center oval. Let me add actually a little bit more shadow right here. Sometimes you see things that you need to add as you go. That's fine. I think that would look nicer a little darker. All right, that looks better. We're going to go into that oval with a slightly darker base color. So it's going to be a little bit more saturated, but also a little bit darker with some black. And a little bit of black goes a long way, so just a tiny bit of black and a little bit of a darker base color. All right, and I'm just filling into my outermost sketch lines in this last area. Very satisfying step to have our full teapot filled in with color. Okay, looking pretty good. I think a little bit of a darker edge for our top part would be good. Okay. Think about the sort of hollowness of the shape. So I've brought some of my shadow color that has helped me create this nice line here, but I've started to play with it a little bit to make it look a little rounder as well by shadowing the two sides of the oval and then blending it a little bit towards the center. And then we're going to add a highlight in there as well. But rather than using white, I'm just going to use a light green. I'm going to go right on that outer edge on the other side. All right, looking good. Let's let that dry and we'll move on to our teacup. So this is going to be really similar steps. Everybody, so far, this smaller section is a little easier. Now we should be experts in roundness. All right, let's start in the same way. I'm going to use probably this smaller brush the whole time for my smaller cup. And I want to color match my main teapot. I'm going to start also with my largest face shape, which is the front area of my teacup. And we're just filling into our sketch lines, adjusting if needed. Remember, we want a curved line here at the bottom. Slightly curved. And we're keeping our brush strokes going in that nice, neat direction as well. As you add your brush strokes, that first pass is just getting the color in there. So you can bring it in there every which way, but then you want to come back over and tidy things up a bit. Really makes a difference because even the brush strokes themselves sort of cast shadows. So you're getting some of that shape before you even have to add any highlights or shadows with paint colors. All right, looks good. I brought it out a little bit further because I have a feeling it's gonna want it a little bit further out, kind of more even that way. And just like our teapot, we're going to add wet on wet blending. So I'm going to take my shadow color, which is again just that base color with a little bit more saturation and a little bit of black. Okay, looking good. Go around the top as well. Okay, and then grabbing some of my base color again and softening it. Blending it a little bit, very light-handed, no bug squishing allowed. Looks pretty good. I think we need a little bit of sort of deliberate shadow here. Going to grab a slightly lighter dark green. I'm going to bring the shadow a little bit sort of through the corner, the bottom part of the cup, bottom corners, 2 of them. And then kind of bring that shadow a little bit towards the center too. And then we can grab some white, just like we did in our teapot, for the highlight in the middle. And again, I'm keeping my brush strokes going up and down. And blending it a little bit, just right with my brush. All right, little bit of roundness. All right, and let's take this same base color for our saucer. It's a little bit on the light side. I want to start fairly light though, because I am going to add some shadows to my saucer section. Okay, nice clean lines, getting this all filled in, being patient with ourselves. This is the majority of the painting. The flowers are like a nice touch at the end, and they're a little simpler. This is some good sort of beginner intermediate learning this week. Learning about roundness and how the light makes something look round. It's very helpful. Depth. Very important part of painting or any type of art. Going to fill in my handle as well, and I think I'll do a slightly different green, maybe a little bit more saturated of green for my handle so that I can see the difference mainly between my handle and my saucer. Okay, that looks pretty cute. And then I'm going to use my darker shadow color to create that soft round outline around my handle, making the handle look round too. Okay, pretty cute. And then around my saucer, creating a little bit of a outline there as well. We're gonna do a few things in this saucer. The saucer is sort of tricky, but it's not the focal point, so don't worry too much. Softened edge around the shadows as I'm adding them. Okay, I'm going to take that shadow color also into the saucer to make it look like the teacup is resting in the saucer. We're going to do a few little horizontal lines right where the saucer meets the cup. We do this when we're doing like a sailboat or a bush or something to make it look like it's casting shadow on the water or the ground. Same idea today. Bringing the horizontal lines out a little bit, and then I'll take a highlight color and go right along the front edge, right on top of that shadow that we just added, and then it will kind of swoop around in the background as well. Now we have the sort of mid part of our saucer. Do a little bit more shadow. This would be a pretty dark shadow, this particular section. I want to make sure that my shapes make sense. Step back if needed. That looks pretty good. Okay, and then let's take a slightly darker green. It's all green, green, green. To the foot of the saucer. Really simple under here. Last couple sections of our main part of today's painting. If you are painting along, I would love to see your work. And I have created a Facebook group called the Art Club that is specifically for that purpose. There's a link in the description box below and pinned in the comment section as well to join that. That is free to join, and it is for you guys to share your work with me and with the other students. It's the best part of my day, truly, to see you guys enjoying the classes. I get the nicest comments. You guys are the best students, truly, in the world. I don't know how I got so lucky. All right, this foot here, we're also going to shadow, but we use a darker green. So I'm going to go even darker with my shadow color. And I'm going to go right along the outside edge. And blend that a little bit, soften it with the base color. We can take that shadow right along the bottom edge of your saucer, and then one little highlight as well, sort of right in that center part. Great job, everybody. Last section is going to be our oval that we started with. So I'm going to match the same colors as up top. And I'm going to bring it out a little bit further even than where my sketch line was. since I made the choice to adjust that when I was filling in the main shape. All right, looking good, a little on the dark side perhaps. Very satisfying to see everything nice and tidy and filled in. Great. Now, when I was up here, I remember I pulled a little bit of shadow from the outside in, but this is pretty dark already. So what I'm going to do is just add some lighter green right in the center part instead, like right along that back edge for its roundness instead, and that'll be plenty to get the depth that I'm wanting. All right, and then just gonna adjust my edge right here a little bit too, just because I think it needs it. But we are going to take a little break now that we've done all this hard work in our filling in, and I want to have nice dry mid layers for when we add our flowers, so that we get really clean, vibrant flower colors. So let's step away for a few more minutes and let this layer dry completely, and then we'll come back and add our final touches. All right, I'll see everyone in a few. Okay, welcome back, artists, to our final step, which is going to be to add our beautiful flowers inside of our teapot and teacup. Our final little details. I rinsed my brushes again and got some more fresh water. Same colors on the piece of palette paper as before. So let's jump right back on into things with our medium-sized brush. And we're gonna start adding some of these beautiful flowers. I'm going to start with a light purple. So I'm blending together purple and white. And then just a tiny bit of water. I don't want to water it down too much though. So I want some good coverage. All right, and I'm going to come to the right-hand side and add a cute little, kind of like a daisy perhaps, but with purple. And the way that I like to do flowers is usually with the sort of 4 cardinal directions, and then in between I will add petals sort of all around that center point. And that helps me space things out a little bit better. And I think I actually want to switch for this flower to my slightly smaller brush for a little bit more control, since I'm going to be doing pretty thin petals. I want a nice, graceful, curved shape there at the end. And we're going to add in between petals again as well. Nice full flower is what we want. I'm just working with the base color right now. And I'm leaving the center alone for the present moment. I'm going to add the center though in a bit. Now I have all my base petals added, and guess what? I'm going to add highlights and shadows. Once again, that is the name of the game. And we're doing some wet on wet blending with this too. So I have a darker purple and didn't wash my brush, so I still had some nice medium purple. I'm just gonna do a quick pass on my petals and blend it a little bit. The more you blend, the more kind of solid color it will become. We should have a nice, cute little floral shape there like it, and we can even add some highlights too. We're getting fancy today. Lots of wet on wet blending, lots of different areas. Let me know in the comments if you like this painting or if it's a little too challenging. Always try to mix it up for us and have some that are a little easier and some that are a little bit more of a challenge. A challenge is good and healthy, so remember that. Trust the process. All right, I'm gonna grab my medium-sized brush again, but I've rinsed all the purple out of it. I'm going to add some of my yellow flowers. So I'm gonna just start with yellow and add some white to up the opacity. All right, and I'm mixing up a fair amount since I'm going to add a few of these flowers. These are sort of like my main focal point flowers. And for my yellow flower, I'm going to do a sort of triangular shaped petal. But I'm also going to go the 4 cardinal directions to start out. But that doesn't mean that every flower needs to be the same, starting with the same 4 directions. This is kind of like creating a plus sign, but your plus sign can go different ways. Florists are pretty intentional, but they're not that intentional. It's usually best when we're doing natural shapes to sort of avoid too much of a perfect pattern. There are definitely patterns. All right. And I'm filling in my petals a little bit bigger now that I have them nicely spaced out. And I'm keeping my brush strokes mostly going from the center out. Looks like a little clover, pretty cute. I'm going to grab some orange with my brush, and I still have a little bit of my yellow and white mixture. And with this yellow orange, I'm just gonna go from the center of my flower and pull a little bit of color out. And I could be using my smaller brush for this step too. That's a matter of preference, whatever you would prefer. I like the petal size is nice with this brush, but if you wanted to use a smaller brush for the center little orange, that's okay too. All right, see, I'm gonna need even more of my yellow orange. I can go ahead and use all my yellow. And since the idea here is Mother's Day and we're pouring into our little teacup, I'm going to have a like mother, like daughter, son, child repetition of our flower types. Okay, so like mother, like teacup. Triangular shapes, same flower as up here. And these are customizable flowers too. So I'm doing my yellow, but just a reminder always, you can do whatever colors you like, whatever color your mother likes. Nice solid layer. We don't want to see through too much. We don't want to see through at all, but easier said than done sometimes with one coat. So you might need a couple coats, especially with a color like yellow, which doesn't have very good coverage power. All right, but I do want to have a little bit of wet on wet blending with my gorgeous orange color right in this first layer from the center, pushing outwards, just like our top one. All right, that looks pretty good for a first layer for those flowers. Let's let them dry for just a moment. I'm gonna add a few little smaller friends. I'm going to grab my second to smallest brush again, and I'm going to add some white little daisies as well. So precious. And these are going to just be a smaller flower, but very similar to our purple flower that we added. You can add as many of these as you like. This is where you do want to think like a florist and design your own little bouquets. And I think this daisy, I'm going to go even further in between here so that we have lots and lots of petals. Like the adorable little tiny daisies that are popping up like crazy this time of year. Some more, of course, in our big bouquet as well. And my yellow flower is pretty dry, my purple too up here. But we do want to keep that a nice clean white. So if you're going to overlap, be mindful of that. You might get a little bit of blending, so you might need to clean your brush in between, come in with a lot of paint, or even give it another second to dry if you need. We're not worrying about the centers quite yet. All right, that looks really cute. I think I'd like to add 2 white flowers in my big bouquet. Such a pretty painting today, very whimsical. Always fun to make beautiful florals. And with the white flowers, your brush strokes matter even more because we're not going to add a second shadow color, well, a little bit of gray, but that subtle paint depth shadow with just your brush strokes can already get you really daisy looking. All right, so cute. I want to add some centers, I think. Let's see, I want to kind of mix it up a little bit. So I know I want to start for sure though with light yellow centers for my white daisies. And actually I'm really feeling that yellow. That looks so pretty. So why don't we do a yellow center for our purple daisy too? Super cute. Very nice. And now that I'm looking at that, I think I actually want to add another layer of purple petals too. So I'm thinking that that's looking a little too sparse. So let me thicken that up real quick. Just a few more passes of purple. Yeah, that looks better. I like that. All right, so cute. Can take this yellow over here into my center though. So cute. They look just like daisies, like real daisies. All right, and let's start adding some greenery too. And I'm going to make a green that's a little different. Here I thought I was done with yellow, but I'm not, because I'm going to add yellow into some dark green and some white. I might even need to come over here for more yellow, because I want a grassy green color. If you need to add more paint to your palette at any point, always do so. But I want to have a nice grassy green for the stem of my cute daisy there. And that daisy would need a stem too. And then I'm also going to add some sort of decorative greenery Always an important part of a floral bouquet. So I'm going to start with a long curved line, and then I'm going to do this a little bit stylized actually. So I'm going to have the little greenery coming from the sides, but I'm going to actually have it floating. Just going to have just kind of a little stylized touch, just like so, and kind of build your little bouquet however you like. Super adorable. We're sort of filling in the extra space with our florals. Look at how adorable that looks. Okay, then we gotta add some greenery up top as well. So maybe we have one coming this direction. Adding to the whimsy with our floating greens. I just like the way that looks. We maybe see a little peekaboo of the green in between our petals. So cute. Maybe we have one that's coming off that direction as well. And maybe even over here, wherever we have space. Just little brush strokes. Trying to keep them in the right direction. Okay. Nice full bouquet, and why not one more green element right here. Looking a little bit fuller now. Very cute. Slightly different color there. I think I might want to actually darken that just a pinch. So that it's nice and bold. There we go. Okay. And now, final touches on our front flowers. Home stretch here, folks. We're doing good. I think I need a little bit more yellow, so stand by one moment. Okay, I added a little bit more yellow and a little bit more white to my piece of palette paper. If you ever need a second piece of palette paper, do so. It's totally okay. I'm going to mix up some more of my light yellow because my petals need a second coat. Really don't want to see any see-through. I want it to look like layers. Okay, with the flowers being the top layer. Nice solid petals. And I might add a little more of my yellow orange to the mix as well. You can see what a difference that second coat of paint can make. Acrylic takes patience when it comes to that, because you gotta sometimes step away, let things dry. It helps your brain too, though, I swear, to step away from the project a little bit. So the breaks are dual purpose. Okay, a little bit more light yellow up in our top petal as well. Just getting everything nice and tidy and refined. Sounds so fancy. And I'm going to add some more of my orange as well. Second coat, but same idea as our first coat. Cute. All right, I'm gonna just come in here with my purple real quick and just correct over where I went a little too far in with my green. Cute. All right, and I think actually I'll even add a second coat of yellow here on my purple flower. And for our yellow centers, I'm going to take a little bit of light orange along the outside edge as my shadow color there. Just take a little quick pass so that you get just the slightest bit of blending, a little bit of roundness along the outside edge of your white flowers. Okay, looking cute. And for the centers, I think I'm actually going to do some black. Black center will be very noticeable. It's really gonna pull our focal point into these flowers with that very dark shadow. Very nice. Okay, and let's take a little bit of orange and do the outside of our yellow petals. Now that they're nice and opaque, and I don't necessarily want to soften the edges with this step like I did many steps before, because this is sort of more of an outline, sort of leaning into the stylized nature of this part. Pulled into my black a little bit. It's a pretty easy fix though, no worries. Actually, I need to add a little bit more down there, jumping all around. That's okay for you to do too though. Just working it as it needs. Every painting unique. Don't want to blend my black though. I want to have a nice black center and then orange on the outside. Okay, cute. Final touches, a little bit of gray for our daisies. This is a very light-handed step. You could even use your very smallest brush for this if you wanted. But I like to take a little bit of gray on the outside of my petals as sort of like a super light little squiggle just around some of the petals. And it's nice to sort of do it quickly. That one was sort of better. Got a little heavy-handed over here. This is also sort of leaning into the stylizedness of these and just making a nice contrast of dark and light to draw the eye in. Okay, and I can do a little bit in the center too, around one side of our yellow center. Really pretty. Let's do some very light highlights now as our final touch. So I think I'd like to add a little bit of super light yellow here in my main yellow and orange flowers with just a few brush strokes at the edge of a noticeably lighter color, just to sort of mess everything up a little bit now so that it doesn't look like too many deliberate brush strokes. Bring some of that painterliness in. Very pretty. And then a little bit of white in some final little highlight areas. I'm gonna do a quick little shine mark there. Maybe we'll do one right down there. And perhaps right in our cup too. And I'm going to clean my brush a little bit. And soften that so that we get a nice clean shine mark. And I think that is a little too much. So let me go all the way back to my base color if needed. And tone that down a little bit. Make it a little streaky again. Just so we have our lightest lights. That one looks pretty good. Very light-handed with the final touches. I think we could do a little super light highlight down there and anywhere else that you think would look nice. I always like to accentuate the curves of things. I like to think like that. And then of course just blending as needed. Okay, in our final little piece de la resistance step, we're going to add a little bit of water droplets with our last color on our very messy palette with some gorgeous light blue. That's just gonna be blue and white. We're just gonna do some little water droplets coming out of the faucet or of the nozzle handle. What's the word I'm looking for? Spout. Coming out of the spout. However many you end up with is just fine. And I'm going to take a lighter blue. I'm going to do a little dot on the front ends of my water droplets for a little bit of depth. And then I'll grab some darker blue to go around the shape as a final little outline step. You want it to be a water droplet shape there. So I'm kind of refining my little quick brush strokes with more of a water droplet-like shape, which is going to come to a point a little bit more. And this is fine detailing. I should probably be using my smallest brush. I tend to not use that brush so much. I think part of it too is that my dexterity is getting better with these classes. All right, just going back in there, making sure it looks nice and clean and tidy. Again, I would love to see your work over in the art club, so make sure to join me over there. Shout out to all of my members who are supporting me over in the membership program. So if you're watching paintings from a couple months ago, you will see me mention the Gold Stars program. It's a little bit different now. Wasn't able to keep up with the monthly filming, and I got a little feedback that it was a little too challenging. So it's a little too challenging for you guys, a little bit too challenging for me to keep up with too. So I've lowered the price significantly, and I want the memberships eventually to access all of my supplemental courses along with some other perks. So there's priority comment response, and also you get a gold star emoji that shows up next to your name whenever you comment on the channel. And then you'll have access to my supplemental courses, which I have one on color theory right now, and then I have a few more intermediate level courses. Right now, those will say that the courses are monthly, but they're not monthly. I'm going to try to do them twice per year for you guys with the supplemental courses, and I'm going to be repurposing those a little bit in the coming weeks, but you will still have access to those. So thank you so much if you are a member. It also, of course, supports me and my channel. I am a one-woman show, and I have a day job too. But the channel is growing more and more every day, and I so appreciate you being here, and special shout out to my members. And that is all the instruction that I have for us this week. So I'd love to know what you thought of today's painting. And that is all for today. So happy Mother's Day, happy painting, and until next time.